Hi guys, so this video is going to be filling in the standard deviation notes that you were given out. So this will just take us through the last topic that we've got to do for the National 5 course, and it'll give us some questions based on calculating the mean and the standard deviation of a set of numbers. Okay, so the standard deviation, if we read our little blurb at the top, is an indication of the consistency within a set of data. Okay, so it tells us how spread out a set of data is. Now the formula that is in the grey box here, you are given in your formula sheets, you do not have to remember it. And I'm going to take you through the process of how we are able to use this formula to calculate the standard deviation of a set of numbers. Now a few bits of vocab, or symbol meaning I suppose. The symbol that I've circled there is the sum of, so that is a sigma notation, and it means the sum of everything that comes afterwards. So in the formula we have this section in brackets, which is x minus x bar, that's known as all squared. So once we have found various values that fit those conditions, we are then going to have to add them together, and that is how the table is going to come in really handy for us. X then is any number in the set, so that will be those numbers that we are given within the question. X bar, so x with a little bar on top of it, is the mean value, which we have calculated previously in previous years. We'll have to calculate that as well. N is the number of numbers in the set. Okay, so how many numbers there are. So the first thing we're asked to do with example 4 here is to calculate the mean of the set of test scores that we are given on the right hand side. Okay, so just get rid of those lines. And we are going to do the mean, so we'll label that as x bar as it is labelled in the formula. We are going to add each of these values together. So we add all of them up. We end up with 360. We then, to find the mean, divide that by how many numbers there are, so dividing it by 6, and we get a mean of 60. Okay. Now that mean is going to be used in the next step within our table. A little note on the table is not given to you in an exam context or assessment. You will have to remember how to create the table, but it's there as a tool to help you then complete the question. So you can see the first column of the table is all the values that we were given in the question. They were the test scores. In the middle column, we've got this x minus x bar. So that's each value of x subtract the mean of 60. So we'll do that each time. 73 minus 60, and that bit there is 13. 47 minus 60 will give us negative 13. 59 minus 60 will give us negative 1. 71 minus 60 is 11. Not negative 11, just get rid of that. 48 minus 60 is negative 12, and 62 minus 60 being 2. Okay. Our next step then is to complete the third column, which is where we have to square each of the values we have calculated in the middle column. So that's x minus x bar, which we've calculated in the middle, all squared. So we square that value. So we get 169, we get another 169, negative 1 squared is 1, 11 squared is 121, negative 12 squared is 144, and 2 squared being 4. Okay, so we fill in those values. Mine's a little bit more squished just because of the nature of writing on the iPad at the moment. But once we've calculated them all, we've got to simply add them together. 4 and 4. So we add all those together and we get 608. Now the whole process of the table is so that we can gain access to that there, the x minus x bar squared, the sum of. Okay, so the next step then is to put that value into the formula as well as our value for n and to do a calculation. So our standard deviation is equal to the square root of 608, that value from the table, over n minus 1. Now n is 6, so 6 minus 1. If I just simplify that down a little bit, it'll be the square root of 608 over 5, we're able to pop that into the calculator. If you write the square root symbol, enter then a bracket, 608 divided by 5, and we get 11.02 and so on. So 0, we'll go for 0.3, we go to 2 decimal places, and that is our standard deviation. Now, if you're not getting 11.03 or 11.027 out in your calculator, something's gone wrong when you've tried to put this calculation in. So if you're using a sharp calculator, you will need to hit the square root button, then in brackets your calculation of 608 divided by 5. Okay, so just be careful with the way you're entering that into the calculator. Okay, and those are our calculations. Okay, as I say, the table will not always be there. In fact, it will never be there. We will have to create it within a general question, which we'll see on the next page. And there's a couple of extra things we can do as well when we are comparing the values of these statistics to another set of data. So if we go on to example 5, before we get there, we have a little note on comparing statistics. Now I'm going to leave this for you to read, and we can talk a little bit more about it once I am back, so I should be back on Wednesday. We can talk a little bit more about this as we do revision and questions, okay? But there is a question like this in the next example, which we will need to compare statistics from 2 data sets. So, a typical past paper question might look like so. We've got a part A where we have a runner who has recorded her times in seconds for 6 different laps of a track. So we've got 6 different values. Those are our values of X when we come to use our table to find the standard deviation. Now, first part is to find the mean. Okay, so I'm going to do that up the top here just so I've got a little bit of space. X bar is each of these values added together and then divided by 6. So if I quickly add those together in the calculator, we'll get 339. Now, dividing that by 6, as there are 6 data points, we get 56.5. Now that's our value for the mean, and that would gain us 1 mark out of the possible 4 that are available for this question. The next step then, we will create the table that was given to us in the last question. So we've got our values for X. In the middle we have X minus X bar, and our third column is X minus X bar all squared. Okay, so we create that table each time, as that will help us then get the value we need to substitute into the formula. Values of X then, 53, 57 are the ones that we have already in the question. So 58, 60, I might not be able to fit these in here, 55, and 56. I'll just put that one in there and I can try and squeeze it in. Okay. So next column, we do our X value, subtract the 56.5 for our mean, so 53, subtract 56.5, we'll get negative 3.5 there. 57, subtract 56.5, that's 0.5. 58, subtract 56.5, 1.5. 60, take away 56.5, we get 3.5. There we go, 0.5. 55 minus 56.5, so negative 1.5. And I'll just squeeze that one in, 56 minus 56.5 is negative, so I'm just going to squeeze that in down the bottom there, underneath. You'll probably be able to fit it in the bottom of your table. Now the next task then is to square each of these values. So 3.5 squared is 12.25, as is then negative 3.5 squared as well, 12.25 there. 0.5 squared is 0.25, so as is the negative, so 0.25. Remember, when we square a negative number, we get a positive value. Okay, so the negative number times itself. That's why these values are all positives. 2.25s for the 1.5 squares. And then we've got to total them up. Okay, so I'm kind of going into the part B of the question here, but you should be able to, as I say, fit it in within your space underneath part A. Okay, so the next task then is to add up all of these values that we have in the last column. So we've got two 12.25s, two 2.25s, and two 0.25s. Adding them all up, we get 29.5 in total. Now, as seen previously, that gives us the number to put into our formula. So the standard deviation is equal to the square root of that value, 29.5, divided by n minus 1. Now again here, n is 6 because we have 6 data points, so 6 minus 1, square root of 29.5 divided by 5. Just being careful how we put this into the calculator. We should get out 2.4 to 1 decimal place. Now that process there gets us 4 marks in an exam situation. The last 2 marks come from being able to compare the data set that we've calculated the statistics on with 2 statistics that are given to us from another set of data. Okay, so the question we have then for B is that the runner changes her training routine, hoping to improve her consistency. After this change, she records her times for another 6 laps. So the mean after her training programme was changed was 55 seconds. Comparing that to our mean of 56.5, her mean is smaller, so her average time is less. Okay, so we're asked to make 2 valid comparisons. One is a comparison of the means. It's very important that we don't say the word mean here, and instead we refer to these as averages. Okay, so on average, we're talking about on average, and then we've got to compare our statistics. Okay, so on average, after her training programme, she was faster because her 55 seconds was less than the 56.5 seconds. Okay, so on average, after the training, she was faster. Okay, in fact, we'll say her times were faster. Okay, so that's one comparison. The second comparison is for us to compare the to compare the standard deviation. Now, she's hoping to improve her consistency, which means for her to be more consistent, we would be looking for a smaller standard deviation. Now, our standard deviation was this value here of 2.4. So she has not achieved that, but we've still got to compare her between our sets of lap times. So we could say after the training, her times were less consistent. Now the reason that would be is because a higher standard deviation means that her times are more spread out from the mean, and therefore they're less consistent, they're less the same, they're less similar. Okay, so we'd use that word consistency as that's what they've used within the question. Okay. Now, your main task today is going to be completing questions on the mean and standard deviation, and then tomorrow's period we will get on to the past paper questions, which involve us having a set of data and then a comparison to do with another set of data as well. Okay. I'll leave instructions as to what questions they are to be completed from your Unit 5 booklet. So if you can please take note of them just now and head off and begin completing. Thank you. Any questions, I'll be available on the Teams page if needed.